Date, October 1st, 2017. Location, Central City. The small, rundown house stood at the end of a quiet street, its wooden panels weathered by time and neglect. The dim glow of a street lamp flickered just outside, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Inside, 12-year-old Elijah Jackson sat at the small, wobbly kitchen table, peeling potatoes with practiced hands. The knife moved methodically, the skin curling away in delicate spirals. His 10-year-old sister, Aaliyah, sat beside him, scribbling in a worn-out notebook, her tiny fingers gripping a dull pencil. The pages were filled with childish drawings of bright, impossible worlds. Worlds far removed from the harsh reality they lived in. Their mother, Monica Jackson, stood at the stove, stirring a pot of thin soup. The meager meal barely had any seasoning, but it was all they could afford. Monica was exhausted. Her bones ached from standing on her feet all day at the cafe, her fingers sore from scrubbing dishes and wiping down greasy countertops. She worked double shifts, sometimes triple, all to keep a roof over her children's heads and food, no matter how little on the table. The absence of Elijah and Aaliyah's father was a wound that never truly healed. He had walked out on them years ago, leaving Monica alone to struggle. There was no support, no extra income, no safety net. Just her grinding away at life, hoping that someday things would get better. But life in this town was unforgiving. Elijah had learned quickly that childhood was a luxury he could not afford. At just 12, he had taken on responsibilities far beyond his years. He looked after Aaliyah, made sure she ate before he did, helped with chores, and even assisted his mother in the kitchen whenever she needed. If something broke, he fixed it. If Aaliyah was scared at night, he held her hand until she fell asleep. If their mother cried behind closed doors, he pretended not to hear. "Baby, go wash up. Dinner's almost ready," Monica said softly, turning to her son. Her eyes, once bright and full of dreams, now held only exhaustion. Elijah nodded and set the potatoes aside, washing his hands in the rust-stained sink. The water ran weakly, barely warm, but it was enough. As they sat down to eat, the silence in the room was heavy. It wasn't uncomfortable, just the kind of silence that came when there was nothing left to say. Life was hard and they all knew it. Aaliyah broke the silence, her voice small. "Mama, do you think one day we can go somewhere nice? Like the beach? Or a big city?" Monica gave her a tired smile, brushing her daughter's braids with gentle fingers. "One day, baby, one day." But Elijah wasn't so sure. He had seen the way the world worked. He had seen how his mother was treated at the cafe, how people looked at them, how opportunities never seemed to come their way. He had heard the cruel words from the white police officers when they came into the cafe, mocking his mother, laughing at her, treating her like she was beneath them. And he had seen how she swallowed her pride every time because she couldn't afford to fight back. That night, as they cleaned up after dinner, Monica placed a few crumpled dollar bills and coins into an old coffee tin. It was her secret savings jar. She had been putting away whatever little she could for months now, hoping, praying, that one day she'd have enough to move her children somewhere safer, somewhere where they wouldn't have to live in fear. Elijah knew about the jar. He had seen her count the money when she thought he wasn't looking, had heard her whispering prayers over it, as if willing it to grow. But dreams didn't grow in this town. They shriveled and died. And Elijah had no idea that their lives were about to change forever, that soon his mother's kindness would put them all in danger, that soon he would have to fight for their survival, that soon he would become a hero. The night was eerily quiet. A cold breeze slipped through the cracks in the walls, making the dimly lit kitchen feel even smaller. Monica Jackson sat at the old dining table, her fingers tracing the rim of her chipped coffee mug, though the liquid inside had long gone cold. Elijah and Aaliyah had gone to bed, curled up in their shared room with the threadbare blankets Monica had patched up countless times. She sighed and rubbed her temples, exhaustion weighing heavy on her bones. Tomorrow would be another long day at the cafe, another day of fake smiles and swallowing her pride as the racist white police officers tormented her. She had no choice. If she lost this job, her children wouldn't eat. Bang, bang, bang! A sudden, frantic knocking at the front door shattered the silence. Monica's heart jumped. She immediately turned toward the hallway where her children were sleeping. Who the hell would be knocking at this hour? Elijah, she called in a hushed tone. Within seconds, he emerged from the room, eyes still heavy with sleep. Who is it? He whispered. I don't know, she said, moving cautiously toward the door. Another loud bang came, followed by a hoarse, desperate voice. Help, please, help me. Elijah froze. It was a woman's voice, weak, desperate. Monica exchanged a glance with her son before cautiously approaching the window. Peeking through a tiny gap in the curtain, she sucked in a sharp breath. A white woman lay crumpled on the ground just outside their house. She wasn't just any woman. She was wearing a sheriff's uniform. Monica's hands clenched around the doorknob as a million thoughts ran through her mind. A white sheriff? Here? At this hour? Injured? It didn't make sense. And more importantly, if someone had done this to her, were they still nearby? Elijah, stay behind me, Monica ordered, reaching for the door. She hesitated only for a second before unlocking it and pulling it open. The cold night air hit her face, but she ignored it. The woman on the ground was in bad shape. Her uniform was ripped, her face bruised, and her blonde hair matted with dried blood. Her hands were tightly bound with thick rope, and she barely had the strength to lift her head. Sheriff Agent Lauren Mitchell. Monica had seen her before in town, always professional, always clean-cut and put together. But now she looked like she had been beaten, tortured, and left for dead. Her swollen lips trembled as she tried to speak. Help, she croaked. They're going to kill me. Monica dropped to her knees, adrenaline rushing through her veins. Elijah, help me get her inside, she ordered, already reaching for the ropes around Lauren's wrists. Elijah hesitated. Mama, she's white. Monica's head snapped up, her eyes fierce. I don't give a damn what color she is. She's hurt. Now help me. Without another word, Elijah moved, grabbing the woman's arm as Monica lifted her from the other side. They half carried, half dragged her inside and gently lowered her onto the couch. Aaliyah, now awake, peeked from the hallway, her big brown eyes full of fear. Who is she? The little girl asked, voice barely above a whisper. Monica pulled a blanket over Lauren's shaking body. She's a sheriff. Someone hurt her bad. She turned back to Elijah. Go to the kitchen. Get me a wet cloth and the first aid kit. Elijah ran off, returning moments later. Monica dabbed at the woman's face, wiping away some of the blood. Lauren winced but didn't resist. Elijah, untie her hands, Monica said. He hesitated again. Mama, what if this is a trap? Monica looked at him sharply, then at the bruises littering Lauren's face. No one fakes wounds like this. It's not a trap, she said firmly. Now do it. Wait. If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you've faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. With reluctant fingers, Elijah worked at the knots. The rope was tight, but eventually it loosened, and Lauren's hands fell free. The sheriff let out a weak, shuddering breath. Monica gently pressed a damp cloth to her forehead. Who did this to you? Lauren's lips barely moved, but one word escaped. Police. Elijah stiffened. Monica felt her stomach drop. What do you mean? She asked, her voice dangerously soft. Lauren struggled to speak. They caught me. I was investigating them. Corrupt. Dirty cops. And they found out. She gasped in pain. They tortured me, beat me, dumped me here to die. Aaliyah let out a tiny whimper, clutching Elijah's shirt. Monica sat back, staring at the broken woman before her. Racist cops attacking their own? This wasn't just police corruption. This was something darker. Lauren's swollen eyes fluttered. Her voice was barely above a whisper now. They're coming back. They won't stop until I'm dead. Then she slipped into unconsciousness. Monica swallowed hard. They were in danger. She could feel it like a storm on the horizon. But she had made a decision the moment she had opened that door. This woman needed help, and Monica wasn't going to let her die, no matter what came next. The house felt different now, tenser, heavier, like danger had seeped through the cracks in the walls. Monica sat at the edge of the worn-out couch, watching over the unconscious woman who now lay wrapped in an old blanket. Sheriff Agent Lauren Mitchell. A white woman, a law enforcement officer, a victim, and now a threat to their safety. Elijah sat cross-legged on the floor beside his mother, eyes fixed on Lauren's bruised face. Aaliyah curled up in the corner of the couch, her little hands gripping her brother's hoodie, as if holding on to him could protect her from whatever trouble was now creeping toward them. Monica couldn't ignore the weight of what Lauren had said before passing out. They're coming back. That meant the men who had done this to her, the corrupt, racist police officers who already had too much power in this town, would come looking for her, would come looking for all of them. Monica exhaled shakily, rubbing her temples. She had to think. Fast. Her instincts screamed at her to take her children and run. But where? They had nowhere to go. The only family they had was each other. The only home they had was this tiny, run-down house that barely kept them safe from the cold, let alone from men with badges and guns. She needed to be smart. She needed to be careful. "Elijah," she said, her voice low but firm. "Yes, Mama." "Lock the doors. All the windows, too. No one comes in. No one goes out. Not tonight." Elijah nodded and hurried to do as she asked, his small frame moving quickly through the house. Monica didn't miss the way his hands trembled as he slid the rusted locks into place. When he returned, his face was tight with worry. "Mama," he whispered, "what if they already know she's here?" Monica's heart clenched, but she didn't let the fear show. Instead, she reached out and squeezed his hand. "Then we stay quiet, we stay hidden, and we pray." Elijah swallowed hard. Prayers hadn't done much for them so far. Hours passed. The house remained silent except for the occasional sound of Aaliyah's soft breathing and the occasional groan from Lauren as she shifted in her unconscious state. Then, a noise outside. Aaliyah stirred in her sleep, but Elijah and Monica both snapped to attention. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Monica's breath caught in her throat. They were here. Elijah moved without thinking, crawling toward the window and peeking through the torn curtain. His heart slammed against his ribs as he spotted a dark figure standing just outside their yard. The figure stood beneath the flickering street lamp, hands in his pockets, head slightly tilted as if listening. Watching. Then bang, bang, bang. 3 sharp knocks against the door. Elijah flinched. Monica's grip on his arm tightened. "Stay quiet," she whispered, barely moving her lips. They listened. Then came the voice. Low, taunting, familiar. "Open up, Monica. We just want to talk." A chill ran down Monica's spine. She knew that voice. Officer Travis Hale, one of the regulars at the cafe, one of the worst of them all. "Come on now," he continued, his tone light, almost amused. "We ain't gonna hurt you. Just want to check on things." Monica pressed a finger to her lips, signaling Elijah to stay down. Another voice, deeper this time. Officer Ryan Cole. "Don't make this harder than it has to be, Miss Jackson," he called out. "We know you're in there. We know you got something that belongs to us." Elijah's hands balled into fists. They knew. Monica's mind raced. If she didn't answer, would they break down the door? Would they force their way inside? She could hear them laughing. A car engine hummed softly in the background, probably parked down the street, waiting for the moment they'd have to chase down anyone who tried to run. Then, more knocking, louder, harder. "Open up! Now!" Aaliyah whimpered, burying her face into Elijah's shoulder. He held her tightly, shielding her as best as he could. Then suddenly, silence. The officers didn't leave. They didn't knock again. They just stood there, waiting. Then Travis spoke again, voice lower, colder. "If you don't open this door, we'll burn this whole house down, with all of you inside." Monica's blood turned to ice. She knew these men were capable of evil. She had seen it in their eyes at the cafe. She had seen it in the way they treated black people in town, as if they weren't human, as if they didn't deserve to live. They wouldn't hesitate. They would do it, and no one would stop them. She had to think fast. Monica turned to Elijah. Her voice was urgent but steady. "I need you to listen carefully, baby. Take Aaliyah and go to the back room." Elijah's eyes widened. "Mama, no. No arguing," she cut him off. "If anything happens, you take your sister and you run. You hear me? You don't stop. You don't look back. You run to the sheriff's headquarters. Find someone who ain't dirty. Tell them everything." Elijah clenched his jaw. He didn't want to leave her, but he trusted her. "What about you?" he whispered. Monica forced a small, reassuring smile. "I'll handle them." Elijah hesitated, then nodded. He grabbed Aaliyah's hand, whispering for her to follow him. The little girl clung to him, eyes full of fear, but she didn't resist. As they disappeared into the shadows of the back room, Monica stood up. She pulled in a deep breath and walked toward the door. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the knob, but her eyes were fierce. She had spent years swallowing her pride, years enduring. But tonight she was done being afraid. She unlocked the door and opened it. The door creaked as Monica Jackson pulled it open. The cold night air slipped inside, wrapping around her like a warning. A street lamp flickered dimly overhead, casting twisted shadows over the two men standing at her doorstep. Officers Travis Hale and Ryan Cole. She had seen them before, smirking at her while she wiped down tables at the cafe, cracking cruel jokes at her expense, throwing their coffee on the floor just to watch her clean it up. "Wait! If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel." Now they stood before her, their faces full of something far worse than amusement. They wanted blood. Monica swallowed her fear, keeping her face blank. She couldn't let them see her shake. She couldn't let them know they had already won. "Officers," she greeted, voice steady. "What's all this about?" Travis's lips curled into a slow, ugly grin. His blue eyes gleamed with something sinister. "Come on now, Monica," he drawled, stepping forward, forcing her to step back. "Don't play dumb. We know you got her in there." Monica didn't blink. "Got who?" Travis chuckled under his breath and glanced at Ryan. The second officer stood with his hands tucked into his belt, his fingers just inches from his gun. Ryan spoke next, his voice heavier, filled with impatience. "We don't have time for this," he muttered. "We know Lauren's in there, and if you think for 1 second you can hide her from us, you're dead wrong." Monica held her ground, even as her pulse pounded in her ears. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, arms crossed. "Ain't no sheriff agent in my house. Just me and my kids." Travis let out a slow, knowing sigh. "That's so." He took another step closer, so close that Monica could smell the beer on his breath. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice, making it almost gentle, like a snake whispering before it strikes. "I'm gonna give you one last chance, sweetheart. Be smart about this. Hand her over and we'll forget this ever happened." Monica's fingers dug into her palms. She could feel their trap closing around her. If she admitted Lauren was here, they would take her and kill her. If she kept lying, they would force their way inside and find her anyway. Either way, she lost. Unless... Monica let out a short, bitter laugh and shook her head. "Now why would I be stupid enough to bring a white sheriff into my home?" she said, folding her arms. "You think I want to get myself killed? You think I don't know what happens to black folks when they get caught up in white people's business?" Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly. She saw the hesitation flicker in them. Monica pressed on. "She ain't here," she repeated. "And if you bust into my house without a warrant, well, y'all are the law, right? What's the sheriff's office gonna say when I tell them 2 officers raided a single mother's home in the middle of the night?" Travis stared at her. Then, he grinned. "They won't say a damn thing, sweetheart, because we run this town." And then, he moved. Travis lunged forward, grabbing Monica's wrist. His grip was bruising, his fingers digging into her skin like iron claws. Monica gasped, jerking back, but he yanked her closer until their faces were inches apart. His breath reeked of alcohol and arrogance. "Last chance, bitch," he hissed, his charming facade finally slipping. Monica's pulse roared in her ears. If she didn't act now, he was going to force his way inside. So she did something he didn't expect. She fought back. Wham! Monica swung her free hand up, slamming her palm into Travis's nose. The crack of bone was sickening. Blood spurted instantly. Travis staggered back with a howl of pain, clutching his face. Monica didn't stop. She spun, grabbed the heavy iron doorstop near her feet, and hurled it at Ryan. Ryan barely dodged it. The doorstop crashed into the wooden porch behind him, but Monica had already turned and bolted back inside. "Get her!" Travis roared, blood dripping from his nose. Monica barely had time to shove the door shut before Ryan slammed into it. The force nearly knocked her off her feet. The lock rattled violently as he tried to force it open. Elijah appeared at the hallway, his face pale. "Mama, run!" Monica screamed. Elijah grabbed Aaliyah's hand, and they disappeared into the back room. Ryan threw his full weight against the door again. Crack! The old wood splintered. Monica backed up, eyes darting around the living room. She had to hold them off. But then, a voice from behind her. "Monica!" She turned. Lauren was awake. The sheriff agent's face was still bruised and weak, but her blue eyes were burning with fury. "I heard everything," Lauren rasped. "We have to stop them." Before Monica could answer, the door exploded open. Travis and Ryan burst inside, guns drawn. Travis wiped at the blood on his face, his expression twisted in rage. He wasn't playing anymore. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," he snarled. Monica's body tensed. Behind her, Lauren reached for something beneath the couch. Ryan took a step forward. "Where is she?" he snapped. "Where's the sheriff agent?" Lauren moved. In a flash, she grabbed the metal poker from the fireplace and swung. Crack! The heavy iron rod slammed into Ryan's knee. He screamed, collapsing instantly. His gun clattered to the floor. Travis barely had time to react before Monica rushed him. She threw all her weight into his chest, slamming him against the doorframe. His grip on the gun loosened for a split second, just enough for Monica to knee him hard in the stomach. He gasped in pain, stumbling backward. "Run!" Lauren shouted. Monica didn't need to be told twice. She sprinted toward the back, toward her children. "Elijah! Aaliyah! Go! Now!" Elijah grabbed his sister's hand. They ran for the back door. Lauren staggered behind them, still weak but moving. Travis was already recovering. "Don't let them escape!" Ryan groaned on the floor, clutching his shattered knee, but Travis reached for his gun. Bang! A bullet tore into the wall just inches from Monica's head. "Faster!" she screamed. Elijah threw the back door open. Cold night air rushed in. They ran. The last thing Monica heard as they bolted into the darkness was Travis's furious, blood-soaked voice. "You can't run from us! We will find you!" But Monica didn't care. She wasn't running. She was fighting, and she wasn't stopping now. The night swallowed them whole as they dashed into the darkness beyond their backyard. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a pale glow over the overgrown grass and twisted trees that lined the narrow alley behind their home. Elijah's hand gripped Aaliyah's tightly, pulling her along as their feet pounded against the uneven ground. Behind them, Monica and Sheriff Agent Lauren Mitchell staggered after the children, the sounds of their ragged breaths mingling with the distant shouts of the corrupt officers still inside the house. "Keep running," Monica urged, her voice hoarse. Lauren stumbled, catching herself against a splintered fence. Her face was still swollen, one eye nearly shut from the brutal beating she'd endured. But the fire in her eyes remained. She was a fighter, even in her weakened state. Elijah glanced back, panic twisting his features. "Mama, where are we going?" Monica's mind raced as she scanned the unfamiliar shadows, stretching before them. They had no car, no money, and no allies in this town. The officers would be on them in minutes, hunting them down like animals. They needed to disappear, and fast. "The sheriff's headquarters," Monica replied through gritted teeth. "If we can get there, we can get help." Lauren nodded weakly. "There's a file, evidence. It's in my bag, proof of everything those bastards have done. We need to get it to the headquarters." Elijah's eyes widened. "But we left it back at the house." Monica's heart sank. All the evidence they needed was sitting in their living room, unguarded and vulnerable. If Travis and Ryan found it, all hope of exposing them would be lost. "We have to go back," Monica decided, her voice firm. Lauren looked up sharply, pain etched into every line of her face. "You can't. It's too dangerous." Monica locked eyes with her, determination burning behind her exhaustion. If we don't go back, they win, Aaliyah whimpered, clutching Elijah's shirt. The boy tightened his grip on her shoulder, his jaw set in defiance. I'll go, Elijah said suddenly, surprising them all. Monica's eyes flashed with fear. Number absolutely not. But Elijah's face was fierce, unyielding. I'm smaller, quieter. I can sneak in and get the bag without them seeing me. You and Miss Lauren are hurt. I can do this. No, Monica repeated, the word heavy with the weight of a mother's dread. Elijah took a step toward her, standing as tall as his 12-year-old frame would allow. Mama, you always said we look out for each other. If I don't go, we're all gonna die. The words hung heavy in the air, choking out any protest Monica might have had. She hated that he was right. Lauren reached out, gripping Monica's arm. He's brave, and he's right. Tears pricked at Monica's eyes, but she blinked them away, nodding slowly. All right, she whispered, but you stay low, stay quiet, and if anything goes wrong, you run. Elijah nodded, the fear in his eyes replaced with steely resolve. He glanced at Aaliyah, her wide eyes glistening with tears. I'll be back, I promise him, he said, giving her a weak smile. Before Monica could change her mind, Elijah turned and slipped back into the shadows, his small figure blending into the darkness. Every step Elijah took toward the house felt like walking into a lion's den. His breaths were shallow, his heart pounding so loudly he feared it would give him away. The faint light from the street lamp was his only guide, flickering like a dying star. The house loomed ahead, its windows dark, ominous. He could hear voices inside, angry, frantic. Carefully, he crept around to the back door, the one they'd escaped through. It hung ajar, splintered wood and shattered glass glittering like dangerous jewels in the moonlight. He peered inside. Wait! If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Ryan sat slumped against the wall, cradling his injured knee, his face twisted in pain. Travis paced the room, his face a grotesque mask of blood and fury. She has the goddamn evidence, Travis, Ryan snarled. If she gets to the headquarters, we're finished. Travis slammed his fist into the wall, leaving a bloody smear. That bitch is dead, and her brats too. Elijah's blood ran cold. He was the brat they wanted dead. Slowly he slid through the door, making himself as small as possible. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with rage and fear. The bag, Lauren's bag, the key to saving them all, lay forgotten on the couch, just a few feet away from where Travis was muttering curses under his breath. Elijah's legs trembled, but he forced himself forward inch by inch. He could feel Travis's eyes burning into the walls, into the shadows, anywhere but where Elijah was creeping. Finally, his fingers brushed the strap of the bag. He snatched it up, holding his breath. God damn it, where did they go? Travis hissed, spinning around. Elijah froze, clutching the bag to his chest, praying the darkness would swallow him whole. But Travis's eyes swept over the room and then back to Ryan. He hadn't seen him. We'll find them, Travis growled. And when we do, they'll wish they never crossed us. Elijah's heart hammered as he slid back through the doorway, silently slipping into the night. He didn't stop running until he found his mother and Lauren, huddled beneath a cluster of trees at the edge of the alley. Monica pulled him into a tight hug, her tears hot against his cheek. You did it, she whispered, her voice thick with relief and pride. Lauren took the bag, her battered hands trembling as she opened it and pulled out the thick manila folder inside. This will put them away for life. But as the distant roar of a car engine reached their ears, they knew their fight was far from over. The corrupt officers were hunting them, and they wouldn't stop until blood was spilled. The sound of an engine rumbled in the distance, growing louder with each second. The hunt had begun. Monica clutched Elijah and Aaliyah close, pressing their bodies into the thick shadows beneath the trees. Lauren gripped the bag of evidence tightly against her chest, her breath shallow, her injuries weighing on her like chains. A single street lamp flickered overhead, casting eerie, broken beams of light onto the alley. Footsteps crunched against gravel. Then, voices. "I swear to God, I saw movement. They're close." It was Travis Hale's voice, laced with rage, thick with vengeance. Monica's fingers tightened around Elijah's arm. "Stay still," she whispered so softly it was almost silent. Elijah barely nodded, his heart hammering against his ribs. He knew that if Travis and Ryan found them now, they wouldn't make it out alive. Lauren adjusted herself painfully, pressing her back against the tree trunk, her fingers clutching the manila folder inside the bag. She had risked everything for this proof. Evidence of the officers' crimes, records of their brutality, the missing case files of the black men and women they had arrested, hurt, and even killed. But if they got caught now, none of it would matter. The beam of a flashlight sliced through the darkness. Elijah held his breath. The light passed over them, then stopped. A second of silence. Then, "I got something!" The world exploded into motion. "Run!" Lauren gasped, forcing herself up despite the pain. Monica grabbed Aaliyah, scooping the little girl into her arms as she took off into the alley. Elijah sprinted beside her, his legs moving faster than they ever had before. Behind them, gunfire cracked the night open. Pop, pop. Bullets tore through the wooden fences around them, splinters flying in every direction. "Don't let them get away!" Travis roared. Elijah's breath came in short gasps as his feet pounded against the pavement, his muscles burning with every step. Monica ran ahead, her grip on Aaliyah unshakable, even as the little girl sobbed against her chest. Lauren struggled, her injuries slowing her down, but she didn't stop. Another gunshot rang out, too close. The bullet struck a trash can just inches from Lauren. She stumbled, nearly falling, but Elijah grabbed her arm, holding her up. "Come on," he urged. They burst onto a larger street, empty, silent, stretching out before them like an endless road to either survival or death. Lauren looked around frantically. "We need a car." Monica scanned the area, her breath ragged. They had no money, no weapons, no allies. Then, headlights. A lone pickup truck sat at the corner of the street, parked outside a closed liquor store. The keys dangled from the ignition. Monica didn't think. She turned to Lauren. "Can you drive?" Lauren's lips pressed together. "Yeah." Elijah's eyes widened as realization struck. "Mama, are we stealing?" Monica turned to her son, who had already seen too much, grown up too fast. "Baby," she said, holding his face in her hands for just a second. "I need you to listen to me. Right now, it's not about right or wrong. It's about living." She saw the fear in his eyes, but he nodded. Lauren limped toward the truck, yanking the door open. "Get in!" Monica threw Aaliyah into the back seat, climbing in right after. Elijah leapt into the passenger seat, his hands shaking. Lauren jammed the key into the ignition. The truck rumbled to life. "There they are!" Ryan and Travis exploded onto the street, guns raised. Lauren slammed her foot onto the gas. The tires screeched. The truck launched forward, just as another bullet shattered the back windshield. Aaliyah screamed. Elijah ducked down, covering his head. Monica twisted in her seat, checking her children, her heart slamming against her ribs. "Are you okay?" Aaliyah whimpered but nodded, her little body shaking. Lauren gritted her teeth, gripping the wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. "Where's the sheriff's headquarters?" Elijah sat up, shaking glass from his hoodie. 4 miles that way," he shouted, pointing down the highway. Lauren swerved onto the open road, her foot pressing harder on the pedal. But in the rearview mirror, headlights. The police car's sirens screamed to life. They were being chased, again. The truck raced down the empty highway, speeding toward whatever slim chance of safety the sheriff's headquarters could offer. The police car was gaining on them fast. Monica twisted in her seat, trying to think. They had no weapons, no way to fight back. Lauren's face was tight with pain, but her hands stayed steady on the wheel. "Hold on!" The police car swerved closer. Then, bam! The impact jolted the entire truck, nearly throwing them off the road. Elijah screamed. Aaliyah sobbed into Monica's arms. Monica's head slammed against the window, white-hot pain bursting behind her eyes. Lauren struggled to keep control, but the officers rammed them again. Through the shattered rear windshield, Monica saw Travis in the driver's seat of the police car, his mouth twisted into a snarl. He was trying to run them off the road. "We're not gonna make it," Elijah gasped. Lauren's eyes flicked to the road ahead. An overpass loomed in the distance. "Hold on," she muttered. Then she jerked the wheel hard to the left. The truck veered off the road, bouncing down a dirt embankment. The police car tried to follow. Crash! Travis miscalculated. The car slammed into a concrete barrier, flipping onto its side. Monica's breath caught in her throat as she watched it roll, metal crunching against pavement. The truck skidded to a stop at the base of the embankment. Silence. For a moment, all Monica could hear was her own breathing, ragged and desperate. Then, Elijah spoke. "Did we kill them?" Lauren exhaled sharply, glancing in the rearview mirror. "Number. But we bought ourselves some time." Monica swallowed hard. Time. That's all they ever had. Small moments of borrowed time before the fight began again. She turned to the children. "We're almost there. Stay with me, okay?" Elijah wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Okay." Aaliyah sniffled but nodded. Lauren gripped the wheel and sped toward the sheriff's headquarters. The chase was over, for now. But the war had just begun. The stolen pickup truck roared down the empty highway, its tires humming against the asphalt as the wind howled through the shattered back windshield. Lauren's grip on the steering wheel was tight, her knuckles white as she pushed the vehicle as fast as it would go. Every mile mattered. Every second counted. Monica sat in the passenger seat, her pulse a steady drum against her ribs. The adrenaline had worn off, and now pain seeped into every inch of her body. The crash, the fight, the chase, it had all taken its toll. In the back seat, Elijah sat upright, his fingers still curled tightly around the seatbelt strap, as if letting go would somehow send them tumbling into the darkness. Beside him, Aaliyah huddled close, her tiny hands gripping his hoodie, her body trembling against his side. They were almost there. The sheriff's headquarters was only a few miles away now, a beacon of hope in the middle of the chaos that had swallowed their night. But hope felt fragile. Monica knew better than to trust that safety was just up ahead, her hands curled into fists in her lap. Travis and Ryan weren't dead. They had crashed, but men like them didn't just stay down. They crawled back up. They hunted. They came back stronger. And if Monica knew one thing, it was that those officers weren't going to let them live if they caught up. Lauren exhaled sharply, her face pale from exhaustion and pain. "I don't know how much longer this truck's gonna last," she admitted. "That last hit did something to the engine. It's struggling." Monica shot a glance at the dashboard. The gas gauge was dipping lower than she liked. Not good, Elijah noticed too. "What if we run out before we get there?" Lauren didn't answer, because there was no answer. If they didn't make it, there was no backup plan. The night stretched around them, endless and unforgiving. And then, headlights. Monica stiffened. Elijah sucked in a sharp breath. "Is that them?" Lauren flicked her eyes to the rearview mirror. A single pair of headlights glowed in the distance, gaining speed. Then, red and blue lights flashed to life. A police car. Monica felt the blood drain from her face. Elijah turned to her, eyes wide. "How did they find us so fast?" Aaliyah whimpered, burying her face in her brother's arm. Lauren gritted her teeth. "They're not giving up." Monica didn't waste time wondering how they were still standing after that crash. Men like Travis and Ryan were fueled by hate. Hate kept them moving. Hate kept them alive. And now that hate was coming for them at full speed. The police car gained on them quickly, its sirens screaming through the empty highway. Lauren clenched the steering wheel tighter. "I'm gonna try to outrun them." "Wait. If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you've faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel." Monica exhaled. "This truck isn't fast enough." Lauren's jaw tightened. "Then we hold on for as long as we can." Elijah turned, his heart slamming in his chest as he watched the police car inch closer. The silhouette of Travis Hale behind the wheel was unmistakable, and he was smiling. Elijah's stomach turned. He knew what that smile meant. This wasn't just about stopping them. It was about finishing them. The radio inside the truck crackled to life. A cold, mocking voice filled the air. Travis. Well, well, well. Thought y'all could get away, huh? Monica's skin prickled. Lauren didn't answer. She just kept driving. Travis chuckled. Did y'all really think you could outrun me? That you could take my little pet sheriff and run off into the night? Nah, this ends now. The police car swerved violently, ramming into the truck's rear bumper. Bam! The truck jerked forward, tires screeching. Aaliyah screamed. Elijah threw his arms around her, holding her tight. Lauren gritted her teeth. I can't keep this up! Another hit. The truck skidded, tires wobbling dangerously. Monica turned back, her breath caught in her throat. She could see Travis gripping the wheel, his face twisted with bloodied fury. She saw Ryan in the passenger seat, his gun raised. And then, a single gunshot rang out. Glass shattered. Lauren let out a sharp cry. Blood splattered across the dashboard. The truck swerved violently. Elijah screamed, his hands reaching out as Lauren's body jerked forward, slamming into the wheel. Mama! Aaliyah sobbed. Monica grabbed the wheel just in time, yanking it back before they went off the road. Lauren let out a weak, choked breath, her hand pressed against her shoulder. Red spreading fast over her fingers. She had been shot. Elijah's chest tightened with terror. Is she? I'm fine, Lauren gasped. Keep driving. Monica barely had time to think. They were losing speed. Travis was still coming for them. They needed a miracle. Then, sirens. More sirens. Monica's head snapped up. Up ahead, red and blue lights flooded the horizon. More police cars. But this time, they weren't Travis's men. Elijah's breath caught. They had made it. The sheriff's headquarters was right there. Monica pressed the gas pedal as hard as she could. The station's entrance came into view. A set of barricades and uniformed officers standing guard. Real officers, not the corrupt ones. Lauren's voice was weak but firm. Don't stop. Drive straight through. Monica's foot slammed on the gas. The pickup barreled toward the entrance. Travis realized too late what was happening. They weren't his prey anymore. They were running straight into the hands of people he couldn't control. Monica's truck crashed through the first barricade, skidding to a stop in the middle of the sheriff's headquarters parking lot. The officers on duty surged forward, guns raised. Lauren threw the door open, blood still soaking her shoulder. Officers down! We have evidence of police corruption! Help us! She shouted. The officers hesitated until Travis's car came screeching to a halt right behind them. He stepped out, his face wild with rage. But now he wasn't the one giving orders. A senior officer, a captain, stepped forward, gun drawn. What the hell is going on here? Lauren held up the blood-stained bag of evidence. These men, she gasped, are corrupt officers. They tried to kill us, and I have the proof. Silence. Then, the captain's eyes flickered to Travis and Ryan. They had lost. Monica exhaled, collapsing against the truck as reality hit her. It was over. They had made it. Elijah looked at his mother, his lips trembling. Mama, did we win? Monica pulled him close, holding her son like she'd never let go. Yeah, baby, she whispered. We won. The air outside the sheriff's headquarters was thick with tension. The flashing red and blue lights illuminated the night, casting eerie shadows across the pavement where Monica, Elijah, Aaliyah, and Lauren stood, shaken, battered, but alive. Uniformed officers had surrounded the scene, guns still drawn, uncertain of what to believe. In front of them, Travis Hale and Ryan Cole stood frozen. Blood crusted on Travis's nose from where Monica had broken it earlier. His uniform was torn, and his eyes, once full of cocky arrogance, now burned with panic. Ryan, still limping from his injured knee, clutched his side like a wounded animal. But despite their obvious injuries, despite the wreckage of their police car just a few feet away, they still had the audacity to act like they were in control. Captain Walters, this is a misunderstanding, Travis began, his voice laced with forced composure. These people just barely escaped getting murdered by your sorry ass, Lauren interrupted, her voice raw with exhaustion, pain, and fury. She took a shaky step forward, clutching the bullet wound in her shoulder, but her grip on the evidence bag was firm. Blood dripped from her fingertips, but she didn't let go. Captain Walters, a tall black man with a hard, unreadable face, lowered his weapon but didn't holster it. His sharp eyes moved between Lauren and the two officers. "Mitchell," he said carefully, "you got something to say?" Lauren nodded. Her breath was labored, but her voice didn't waver. "Yes, sir. These men, Travis Hale, Ryan Cole, and several others, have been running a corrupt operation inside this department for years." A murmur ran through the surrounding officers. Lauren lifted the blood-stained evidence bag and shoved it toward Walters. "This is the proof." Monica stood rigid beside her, her body tense as she studied the other officers. Would they believe them, or would they protect their own? Travis let out a sharp, ugly laugh. "Oh, come the hell on. This crazy bitch has been against us from the start. She's delusional. Look at her. She's been shot. She probably stole that bag from evidence herself." Ryan nodded quickly, trying to play along. "She's lying, sir. She was always digging around where she wasn't supposed to. We caught her trying to tamper with files earlier. That's why we had to detain her." "Detain me?" Lauren spat the words out like poison. "You tied me up and left me for dead." More murmurs rippled through the officers. Some looked at Travis and Ryan with narrowed eyes, suspicion creeping into their expressions. But Travis wasn't done lying yet. His gaze shifted to Monica, Elijah, and Aaliyah, his lips curling into a smirk. "And what about them?" he said smoothly, nodding toward the family. "You expect us to believe a struggling black woman and her two street rats just happened to stumble into all this? Hell, for all we know, she was in on it," Monica snapped. "You shut your damn mouth," she exploded, stepping forward so fast that Elijah had to grab her wrist to hold her back. "You broke into my house. You threatened my children. You tried to kill us, twice. And now you want to turn this around on me?" Her voice shook the air, and for the first time, some of the officers looked truly uneasy. Travis rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on. You people always play the victim." Captain Walters lifted a hand. The entire lot went silent. His sharp gaze locked onto Travis and Ryan, and for the first time, there was no uncertainty in his face, only cold calculation. "Turn around," he ordered. Travis blinked. "Sir? Turn around." Walter's voice was steel. The realization hit Travis and Ryan at the same time. They had lost. They tried to run. But before they could take a single step, they were swarmed. Officers rushed forward, grabbing them, shoving them down onto the pavement. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" Travis bellowed as they wrenched his arms behind his back. Ryan thrashed, but his injured knee gave out, sending him crashing face first into the pavement. The familiar click of handcuffs snapped through the night. Captain Walters finally holstered his gun. "You're under arrest for police corruption, attempted murder, and obstruction of justice. We'll add the rest once we go through the files." Travis's face turned red with fury. "You can't do this. We own this goddamn town." Walters squatted down beside him, his face unreadable. "Not anymore." Elijah watched in stunned silence as Travis and Ryan were dragged away toward the squad cars. He could barely process what had just happened. Aaliyah clutched his hoodie, shaking. "Elijah, are we safe now?" His throat tightened. I don't know," he whispered. Monica turned to Captain Walters, her eyes dark with exhaustion and wariness. "This ain't over," she murmured. Walters studied her, then nodded. "I know. Because even though Travis and Ryan were in cuffs, there were more of them out there. More dirty cops. More men in power who would do anything to keep people like Monica and Lauren silent. But tonight, they had won a battle. And for now, that was enough." Lauren let out a shaky sigh, leaning against the hood of a squad car. Blood still oozed from her shoulder, but her grip on the evidence bag remained tight. "We did it," she whispered. Monica stared at her. They had done it, but at what cost? Elijah exhaled slowly. For the first time in his life, he had seen justice in action. Not because the system had worked the way it was supposed to, but because they had fought for it. As the officers started sorting through the evidence, the media arrived. Reporters swarmed the parking lot, their cameras flashing like bursts of lightning. Elijah had never seen this many news crews in his life. A journalist shoved a microphone toward Monica. "Ma'am, you just took down two of the most corrupt officers in the city. How does it feel?" Monica swallowed, staring at the chaos around her. The flashing lights, the shouting reporters, the swarm of officers rifling through documents that exposed the rot festering inside their department. She thought about how this all started. She thought about the cafe, the spilled water, the cruel laughter, the humiliation, the threats. She thought about how they almost didn't make it out alive. She glanced down at Elijah, then at Aaliyah. Her babies, her whole world. Then she turned back to the reporter and exhaled. It feels like a start. The air around the sheriff's headquarters was electric with tension, a mix of triumph, exhaustion, and the sharp edge of unfinished business. The flashing red and blue lights painted the night in streaks of color, illuminating the faces of officers, reporters, and onlookers who had gathered, drawn by the unfolding scandal. Monica stood in the center of it all, her arms wrapped tightly around Aaliyah, who still trembled from the night's horrors. Elijah stood beside her, his eyes scanning everything, absorbing every detail, every movement, like a soldier fresh from battle. Lauren sat on the edge of a squad car, her bloodied shoulder hastily bandaged, her breath uneven, but her grip on the evidence bag never loosened. The headquarters parking lot was chaos. Officers shuffled through the evidence Lauren had brought, reading documents that detailed years of corruption, racial violence, and illegal operations that had existed within their own department. More officers were arriving, some looking horrified, some looking nervous, some looking guilty. Captain Walters had disappeared inside, no doubt making phone calls that would shake the city from the inside out. And in the middle of it all, Travis and Ryan sat handcuffed in the back of a squad car, their faces dark with rage. Through the shattered window, Monica could see Travis glaring at her, his eyes filled with a quiet promise. This isn't over. Monica didn't flinch, because she had nothing left to fear. Cameras flashed, voices shouted, reporters scrambled to push their microphones toward Monica and Lauren. "Ms. Jackson," one of them called, shoving through the crowd. "Can you tell us what happened? How did you get involved in this corruption case?" Monica exhaled, her body aching, her soul heavy. She wasn't sure she had the words to explain everything they had just survived. How did it start? With a cruel joke at the cafe? With years of injustice? With a sheriff agent being thrown out of a police car like garbage? Where did it really begin? Lauren stepped forward first. Despite her injuries, despite the blood staining her uniform, she stood tall. "I've been investigating this corruption for a long time," she said. "But when I got too close, these men..." She gestured toward the squad car where Travis sat. "They tried to silence me. They beat me. They tried to kill me." The reporters murmured in shock, their cameras zooming in on her battered face. Lauren lifted the bag of evidence in front of them. "But they failed, and now the world is going to know the truth." More shouting, more flashes of light. Another reporter turned to Monica. "Ms. Jackson, you and your children risked your lives to protect Sheriff Mitchell and expose these officers. How do you feel knowing that you've helped take down a corrupt system?" Monica hesitated. How did she feel? She should have felt victorious. She should have felt powerful. But all she felt was exhaustion. Her gaze flickered to Elijah, then to Aaliyah. Her children had almost died tonight. And for what? So that a system that had never protected them could now pretend it was doing the right thing? Finally, she answered. "I feel like this ain't over," she said. Her voice was calm, but it held weight. Because it was true. Travis and Ryan were in cuffs, but what about the other officers who had stood by and let this happen? What about the ones who had laughed while black men were beaten? What about the ones who had ignored cries for help? What about the ones who even now were standing in the crowd, waiting to see which way the wind would blow before they chose a side? Monica's voice was steady as she continued. "This ain't just about two dirty cops. It's about all the people who let them do what they did. It's about the people who looked the other way." The crowd fell silent, because they knew she was right. This fight wasn't over. Hours passed before Monica was allowed to leave. The sheriff's headquarters was still buzzing. Detectives digging through files, senior officials making calls, and news anchors spitting out urgent reports about the biggest police corruption scandal in the city's history. Elijah and Aaliyah sat in a corner of the waiting room, too tired to talk, too tired to process everything they had seen. Monica sat beside them, running her fingers through Aaliyah's tangled hair, watching Elijah stare blankly at the floor. He had seen too much. He had done too much. Monica's throat tightened as she reached out and pulled him into a hug. "You did good, baby," she whispered into his hair. Elijah didn't say anything for a long time. Then, his voice small and tired. "Are we safe now?" Monica hesitated. She didn't want to lie to him, so instead she said, "Safer than before." And for now, that was enough. As they were finally leaving the station, Captain Walters caught up to them. "Ms. Jackson?" Monica turned, too tired to even tense up. Walters studied her for a long moment before sighing. "The city owes you a debt," he said. "Your family's been through hell tonight." Monica gave him a tired smile. "You're damn right we have." Walters pulled something from his pocket, a set of keys. "The city wants to make sure you're taken care of," he said, handing them to her. "There's a new house on the other side of town. It's yours now, paid in full." Monica's breath caught. A house? A real house? Not a rundown rental. Not a place where she had to listen to mice scurry inside the walls. A home. Elijah's head snapped up. "For real?" Walters nodded. "For real." Then he held out an envelope. "And this is for the kids. Scholarships. Full ride. No more struggling." Monica's hands trembled as she took the envelope. It didn't feel real. It was too much. Too big. Too good. Monica swallowed, trying to find words. "Why?" Walters exhaled. "Because sometimes the system fails people like you, and sometimes we try to make it right." Monica studied his face. She could see the guilt in his eyes. He had known. Maybe not everything. Maybe not the full extent of the corruption, but he had known enough, and now he was trying to make it right. Monica took a slow breath. Then finally, she nodded. Maybe she'd never fully trust the system, but she'd take this win. For her kids, for Elijah, for Aaliyah, and for herself, because they had earned it. The sun was just beginning to rise as Monica Jackson drove her children toward their new home. For the first time in what felt like forever, the city wasn't chasing them. No sirens, no gunshots, no threats lurking just outside their door. Just the quiet hum of the road and the promise of something better. Elijah sat in the passenger seat staring out the window, his fingers absently tracing over the edge of the envelope. In his lap, the scholarship. Aaliyah dozed in the back seat, curled up in Monica's old sweater, her tiny chest rising and falling in deep, exhausted sleep. Monica tightened her grip on the steering wheel. She still wasn't used to this feeling. Peace. It felt fragile, like glass balanced on the edge of a table. One wrong move, and it would shatter. Because the truth was, she had spent too many years learning how to survive. And now? Wait! If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you've faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Now she had to learn how to live. When they pulled into the driveway, Monica nearly stopped breathing. The house was beautiful. Too beautiful. It wasn't huge, it wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. A 2-story brick home with a front porch that looked sturdy and welcoming. No cracked walls, no peeling paint, no broken locks or busted windows. Monica swallowed hard. It had been so long since she had looked at a place and thought, "This is ours, this is safe." Elijah unbuckled his seatbelt, staring at the house with wide eyes. "We really get to live here?" he asked, his voice full of something Monica hadn't heard in a long time. Hope. She reached over, cupping the back of his head, pressing a kiss against his temple. "Yeah, baby," she whispered. "We do." Elijah grinned. For the first time in days, he looked like a kid again. Aaliyah stirred in the back seat, rubbing her sleepy eyes. When she saw the house, her little face lit up with excitement. "Mama, look, we have a porch," she squealed. Monica chuckled softly. "Yeah, baby, we do." The three of them stepped out of the car, standing in the golden morning light, staring up at the house that would become their future. Monica closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, the scent of fresh-cut grass and warm earth filling her lungs. It didn't smell like fear. It didn't smell like struggle. It smelled like a new beginning. The sound of a car pulling up behind them made Monica instantly tense. Her instincts kicked in, her body stiffening as she turned toward the road. Then she saw who it was. Lauren. The sheriff agent stepped out of her vehicle, her arm still in a sling, but her face held something Monica had never seen in it before. Peace. Monica met her gaze. Didn't think I'd be seeing you so soon. Lauren smirked. Didn't think I'd be coming back either. Elijah stepped forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. You okay? Lauren glanced down at her injured shoulder, rolling it slightly. I'll live. Monica studied her. They had been through hell together, and somehow they had both made it out. Lauren shifted her weight before pulling something from her jacket pocket. A sheriff's badge. She held it up. I'm not quitting. Monica raised an eyebrow. That's so? Lauren nodded. Too many bad men have been running the show. That stops now. Monica exhaled. For the first time, she saw what Lauren was trying to do. She wasn't just surviving this. She was changing it, fighting back. Lauren tossed the badge in the air before catching it again. Guess I've got a department to clean up. Monica smirked. She liked the sound of that. Guess you do. As Lauren turned to leave, Elijah called out, Hey! She paused, looking over her shoulder. Elijah swallowed. He wasn't sure what he wanted to say. Finally, he just said, Thanks. Lauren smiled. No, kid. Thank you. She nodded toward him, her expression filled with something he wasn't used to seeing from law enforcement. Respect. Then she climbed into her car and drove off, leaving them standing in front of their new home. Elijah turned to his mother, his face serious. You think she'll really change things? Monica sighed, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. I don't know, baby, but she's trying. Elijah nodded, and for now that was enough. That night, as Monica tucked Aaliyah into bed in her very own room, she lingered in the doorway, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall in peaceful sleep. Elijah sat on the edge of his bed, flipping through the scholarship papers in his hands. Monica sat beside him, brushing a hand over his hair. You gonna do it? Elijah hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I think I am. Monica's chest swelled with pride. Her son, her brave, fearless, incredible son, was going to make something of himself. She kissed his forehead, then stood. Good night, baby, Elijah looked up. Mama? She turned. He hesitated. Then softly. We really made it, didn't we? Monica's throat tightened. She had spent years wondering if they ever would. She smiled. Yeah, baby, she whispered. We made it. Elijah smiled back. Then Monica turned off the light, closing the door to their past and stepping into their future. Because tonight, for the first time in her life, she didn't have to fight. She didn't have to run. She didn't have to fear. She just had to live. And that was the greatest victory of all. Sure to like this video, subscribe for more real stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps keep the fight for justice alive.